Marshall Rosenberg was able to connect with large crowds and with people from all over the world as he was teaching nonviolent communication. How did he do that? We're going to look at 3 superpowers that he has and how you can learn from those as well. Now, his first talent is what I call flash empathy. Empathic responses that translate someone's thoughts and judgments into what they feel, want, and need in one sentence. And he does that with a man from the audience who has come up with countless reasons why NVC doesn't work for him.
I see the value in all of this. Yeah. I really do. I guess it's the idea that it's a touchy-feely type of thing that I'm not used to working around.
What you're trying to figure out, if I'm understanding, is how to really put this into a idiom that you can use daily and feels comfortable to you.
And here he does it again with a man who is concerned about his daughter.
I can see that she's at a point in her life where she can move into self-destructive.
So you're scared. See, he's given me an analysis. You really want to protect her from any harm that could happen to her from what she's doing.
Right.
And how painful it must be not to know skills for doing that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can see the guy nodding with his head, right? So what Marshall does is in this one little reflection that he gives, he goes from these thoughts that the guy has, like, my daughter is going in the wrong direction, I need to do something. He moves to his body like, you're scared. And you can see the guy going to his body and kind of like nodding with him. And so this is very helpful if you're a facilitator of groups, because in a very speedy way you can connect with someone while also still, after that, connecting with other members of the audience. I would say that if you try to connect empathically with people just one-on-one, just in daily life, you can actually take it slower, because this is quite advanced what he's doing. And you can make it easier for yourself by just guessing a feeling, and then connecting, and then guessing a need, instead of having to do it all in this one sentence, which is really, really high skilled. What I would do as well is put a question mark when I make this empathic reformulation. So, is it that you feel scared? Marshall has a lot of confidence, right? But if you're just trying out NVC, I would kind of put question marks behind your guesses to people. Now, the second superpower that Marshall has is sharing stories. And first of all, he uses explanatory stories.
I was working with some teachers in a school. They were concerned with the number of broken windows that the students did. And when we got to this part, and I said, what is your request? What is your request of them? One of the teachers said, it's pretty obvious what we want. We want them to stop breaking windows. I said, I have an easy answer for you then. She said, oh yeah, what? I said, kill them. Recent research shows that dead students break no windows. Now, as weird as that example is, look in the newspaper on any given day and see how many of our world leaders express their strategies with what they're going to get people to stop doing. And then they use various forms of violence to get people to stop doing it.
These stories are quite touching, right? So that's one way to make his lessons very memorable. But also by sharing stories, it's kind of like he shows how NVC is not just a communication model, but also really a consciousness. And by sharing stories, you get sort of that consciousness of NVC, and you get how it's way more than just a communication model. And that's helpful also because it's quite a new, different way of seeing things, right? So you kind of need stories to get into that. The second type of stories Marshall uses are success stories. So let's look at that.
Refugee camp in Palestinian Authority, and what all the crowd had to do was hear from my interpreter that I was an American, and a gentleman jumps up and screams at me, murderer, and another one jumps up, assassin, and another one calls child killer. Within an hour, the guy that called me a murderer invites me to a Ramadan dinner at his house. I didn't hear what he thought of me. I connected to what he was feeling, what he was needing. As I walked into that refugee camp, there were hundreds of tear gas grenades all over the lawn, shot in the night before when they had a riot there. And on the side of each of the grenades was written, "Made in USA." So when this guy calls me murderer, hearing that I'm an American, I tried to hear, what is the guy feeling? And I said, "Sir, are you furious?" And then I tried to hear his needs. "Are you needing a different kind of support from my country than you're getting?"
So with these success stories, especially when they're in, zones with a lot of violence, the impact that it has on someone watching is like, okay, if people can do it, or if he can do it with people in such, dire circumstances, I should be able to do it with my, my partner who leaves the dishes in the sink. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of makes you feel like it gives you hope, I think. And it gives you also a bit of fuel, like, wow, look at what's happening in the world. And I need to start in my own circle to make sure that we don't do this on a big scale like is happening now. But the third superpower is humor. And humor is always helpful, I think, when you're teaching or when you're communicating with people. But in Marshall's case, he does something specific with it. So let's have a look at that.
First with the staff, and I asked them that question I just asked you. I said, "What's one thing that the administrator does that you don't like?" And one of the teachers immediately says, "He has a big mouth." Now, do you see the difference between the question I asked and the answer I got? I didn't say, "What size mouth does he have?"
Now, humor is connecting because it often has a bit of an element of judgment or teasing. And we usually only do that when we really trust someone already, when we trust that they see that our attention is kind of loving. So when you do it early on, when you just met someone, you kind of signal and communicate, I already trust you. That's why I'm daring to make these jokes. And so when Marshall does that, it kind of has that effect. But let's look at it. Let's look at another example.
Are you scared that you'll be alone?
No. You care more about those workshops than me. Your own daughter. Precious and 6 years old.
So the judginess in humor, it can go wrong, but the reason why it works when Marshall does it is that he never jokes about someone's feelings. He jokes about our thoughts and our jackals. And here his humor gets another function, which is that because he wants to teach us to be aware of our judgments and jackals, right? And by making jokes about that, he kind of lifts that taboo, because it's a bit of a taboo that, oh, we're judgmental, we shouldn't be judgmental. And that makes it hard to explore it, but by making jokes about it, that becomes a little bit easier. In the next fragment, he jokes again about the kind of jackalish nature of people, but here the humor gets another function.
See how easy it is to get empathy from a jackal? Just about 3 ear pulls and I got it, right? Now, there are some 8-pull jackals, too, I know that. But I can tell from how sweet you are, your mother is a 3-pull jackal.
Thank you.
So here, I think his humor adds a little bit of warmth to, I think people might experience him as a bit stern and a bit authoritative. And I think if he wouldn't have his humor, that would maybe be more dominant. But now I think the humor kind of softens him a little bit. What I find so interesting about this element of humor is that it's not officially part of his model. It is a little bit jackalish as well, and yet it does help for connection. So I find it interesting, like, hey, should humor actually be part of the NVC model? Because it works a little bit similar to being vulnerable, right? NVC teaches you how to be vulnerable more early on with everybody, and that's how you connect more. But as I just explained before, humor can actually have this work in the same way. So I'm curious what you think of that. Maybe let me know in the comments. If you want to start using NVC as well, I have a video here for you which teaches the 4 steps. I kind of guide you through it so you can start trying it out for yourself. See you in the next video.